Thank you, Shiloh. Thank you, Hokodesh. Thank you, the Word. Father is the Word. Thank you for all things. We're supposed to thank Him for good and bad, not just the good times. So, different times, very tough times. Isaiah 45:7, He creates evil. So, Father tests His bride. It's always a test. So, we're supposed to carry our cross, like it says in Matthew. Thank you, Father, for the gospel. And thank you for Shiloh, once again, the one who holds the inheritance, the one who will call out in the book of life his bride and the bridegroom at the wedding supper. So thank you, Father, for that. I always have that in, that's foremost, what's in front. That's what guides me. Thank you, Father, for that, knowing that we'll be accountable, and only those that you bought and paid, they are your purchased possession. So Shem, remember the authority, who you command them, your disciples, in the book of Luke. So say, fear not, only fear the Lord. Only those who fear the Lord will have their names written in the book of remembrance. So thank you, Father, for those, that shofar, the final trump. You are the final trump, not some man in a tower or some Babylonian sun god. So thought I'd come in and have the discussion, because things are fluid. They change quickly. So what a time to be a witness to, well, God's money. Look at that. They're blocking it, cutting it off, right? So we'll see where the weak hands, if there's nowhere to exit, people are going to freak. So that should get the attention. I think this might be the one they still need it for data mining, mind control. So algorithms, the computer knows what you're thinking, but it's not alive. So 010101. Nothing's changed. Still just math, but it's all right. Lots changing fast, should have known, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So we'll see if the markets, they look like they continue to rise. So, or both of God's money. So where do you put your treasure, though? He said, let no one take your crown. Remember? So so right on. I'm seeing them put a pause at the refineries when they made it a critical metal. So it's kind of it's something that it's kind of brilliant, actually. So it puts a pause. It will shake. I think this will shake, a lot of hands. They're pausing again. Do you have an exit strategy? You don't want to ever trade your precious, if that's, at least gold and silver. Silver's always been money, and it's never gone to zero. So people might lose their minds, and we'll see. But I still think that there'll be a demand. Demand will eat up the supply no matter what, because there's only a finite amount. So this is a good move. Didn't see this one coming exactly. Said to pull profit. If you had the ability to pull some profit, wasn't wrong to pull profit. So we'll see. This blockage on saying that the refiners, have too much. I know there's been a deficit to 200 to 300, 200 to 300 million ounces every year. So it's not like there's too much. Then why were these bullion dealers, this is what's happening right now, is because the market's gone up too fast, too quick, is what's happening. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So, you know what I'm saying? That's what happened. Gold is um 5,500, silver, 118, 100, almost 120. So that's that's okay. It could be worth potentially a lot more. Remember, I'm a ratio guy, so it's the industry going. It's people been calling for delivery on all these paper contracts for some time now, the COMEX. So the silver price is kind of broken if you can't sell it. So there's where we're at. Right now it's going to be a waiting game. So let's go back to the old school way of, hodl, hold on for dear life is what it's called. It's just a term in the, in the space for anybody who's a stacker is what they're called. People who don't price irrelevant. It's a tool of manipulation. They cost average, so that's why I was trying to tell people to pull some profits. It was a good time to pull some, you know, that's all right. You got to be able to do something with it. So it's going to be now, again, you don't want to, my idea is trade it for some paper payment. And yeah, I don't like hospitals. That's where sick and dying people go. So I hear you, Joe. I know. I'm on that. So that's why I stay away. It's with there how to get more bad news, but that's okay. You deal with it. Life's not Burger King, right? Can't have it your way all the time. So once again, was telling people to um, pharmacy. I don't like the farm guy either. You know me. They get you on the script and then yeah, they give you the effect, mass side effect. So, um, all right. Well, either way, remember that they use colloidal silver. I don't know who you're talking to. They got something going on with somebody in the in the chat there, Jonathan. Are you, Jonathan had a falling out with somebody there. So, um, all right. Well, again, I've said that before, that the whole idea is to, it's not a lottery ticket. It's not something you pump and dump. There's a paper market which people are still making money on. So they're going to penalize the holder, kind of like they had before when they lower interest rates to 0% and you don't get any savings. That penalizes the saver, remember? So you'll just have to go back to the old school, watch it go up, and know that the supply and demand will kick in, and that eventually the demand will outpace the supply that already is. There's a deficit, so it doesn't make sense with what's going on, but it does. It's a brilliant move because it gives me, it's like who cornered the silver market. They ain't data mining alone. It's kind of like there's not enough beef to feed the people McDonald's. There's not enough silver to data mine all these new data mining stations. Uh, I don't know how you messed with me, Jonathan. There's no thing here. So, um, yeah, there's a, it's a time now where people are going to have to go back to the old school where, you know, I mean, you could sell it, but it wasn't worth selling at the rate. So you could probably still sell it, but you're not going to get the price that, this paper price that I told you, the disconnect. So there will be changes, like I said, when there's only so much, silver, low hanging fruit has been picked. They've already scraped the surface of the easy, kind of like the easy peasy Jeezy. So they sold the Hamashiach for silver. It's God's money and it'll always be. So people just have to be patient. Love, not love. They don't want to love money. Remember, the love of money is the root of all evil. You have to have money. So got to pay the bills, got to, buy more chicken feed or grow it or seeds or, whatever, generators. I don't know what you buy. Solar panels, wind turbines. Everybody buys different stuff. But some people get a new Beta, or get a rack on their truck or a rack for their wife. Want something like that. So the dollar store. Yeah, I call her Dollar Gina or China. So, uh, but General there's the one I'm talking about. They're all, like they sell you some, well, whatever stuff. Everybody needs some stuff, right? That's what kind of stuff do you have? So, either way, well, you gotta put, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Gotta just continue on. Remember, Father will work it all out, and I'm gonna have to be patient, just like this. With what's going on here, I'm always patient. I've been doing this for quite some time, but at least to get to come here, that have the online ministry, and that it'll all come together one day. Don't rush to do it. It's not something that has to be organic. It's kind of the person that I am. Father creates all things, so I don't like to force it. He's going to do what he wants in my life no matter what. So that's the way it works. I just have to do what he tells me. So just keep taking up my cross and sharing the gospel. Don't hide it. So there's nothing in my life that's by chance, because there's no free will. There's no luck. Freedom. Free? How's am I? Everybody's, they lend out, what was that? Or they print, or were they $1 trillion free every 100 days in this country? Wow. Imagine that. So how's that? Everybody's in debt. How's that free? So I thought it was the right to choose, not freedom. The right to choose. The freedom to choose. It's the right of the people. So freedom. Free will. Not a thing. Get that out of your dialect. It's your alien tongue. There's no freedom or no free will. That's long gone. Remember, we're in a whole different world now. They've got their kicking down doors. If you ain't kept up with what's going on, that's why you can't put your head in the sand. So better be doing it. Going back to the old ways. Stay out of the, population density, not people unprepared. So that's all you can do. Don't make plans. Father will wreck them. Just go take up your cross, and that's what it says. So carry your cross. And he didn't carry a cross. Nobody carried crosses. That's paganism. So got to learn a bit more than that. Learn you something. This is the word knowledge. Hell is no knowledge. That's what hell is. Hell's not below your feet. Hell's no knowledge. So, one word at a time. Start studying the word. Father is the word. That's the word Hokadesh. That's spirit. Father spoke all this into existence. Remember? Not gods in the sky. Father created the stars. He didn't come from the stars. He created the stars, sun, and moon. Imagine that. People are pretty twisted, perverted is the word. Well, he doesn't want you to add or take away. That's froward, Hebrew. He said, you frowarded my father's agape. So remember, the agape was the Old Testament, the law. It was all spoken into existence, like the Hebrew language, the toroidal field. So it's mathematical as well, has frequency and value, not some dead where you wake up and mourn in the morning. He said, I am the horizo, not the light. He separates the dark from the light. The dark from the light is the separator. Remember, the one that brings the sword of division. So The one who has he's the high priest of the church, Shiloh. The scepter shall not depart from Judah. He was sprang out of Judah, remember? It was from Bethlehem. David was from Bethlehem. Christ was from Bethlehem. Not Nazareth. What? Nothing good could come of Nazareth. Remember that? So he knew what he was doing. They wouldn't hung him from a tree. He wouldn't be able to make that contract with his bride, divorce his bride, and call her a whore in the book of Revelation because she cheated on his agape, remember? When he was here, Deuteronomy, the women were not even released from their bill of marriage and given a bill of divorce. So taken back to a public place and nailed to a tree, as they nailed him to a tree, making that contract, fulfilling that contract, and then said there'd be a wedding, remember? The wedding supper, the feast of the lambs, where their names would be called out, not by letters. He said, have your loins girded in my service. Those that were by faith, they were saved. And they have to die to be saved. Nobody's being saved. Nobody can be saved. Greek word save is S-O-Z-O, sozo. You have to study it in Greek to be saved, salvation. We weren't saved under the Old Testament. The wages of sin was death. And now we're redeemed because we were bought and paid for. He comes back to redeem. Remember, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. The firmament, the signs, and the stars, sun and moon. Remember Genesis for times and seasons, but they go by some lunar calendar now. They do their lunatic worship and their celebration. We're not supposed to celebrate. Not supposed to. He fulfilled all the celebrations, all the laws of flesh. Remember, not a stone left upon, not one upon another. The destruction of the physical temple, all the physical laws, the rituals. They ate lamb at the Last Supper, not crackers and grape juice. Eating flesh is cannibalism. Eat my body. That's the king of the Yule. Well, they remember the 9/11. They have a king over them. Remember? The king of that Yule wheels, the Saturnalia, the feast of Saturn. Remember, there was the feast days. They had their pagan. Then Catholicism and Satanism hijacked it with eating flesh, like the king of the Saturnalia, where they would eat his flesh after a week in December. Their 12th month, which is the 10th, which is Decami. Remember, let me see your Decami. Everybody get their hands up. It's a stick up. Let me see your Decami. This nonsense with their worshiping of the sun and a lunar aligning their lunar calendar, like they align the sun with the right over the tree. Moloch was the owl god. Throw your kids in the fire, eat your kids. Remember? Satan, Kronos, he had a son, Tammuz. The son of Satan was Tammuz. Remember when Satan died, or Krampus, or Christmas? Remember, he married Easter, or Ishtar, the star goddess with her lunar calendar. They're lunatics. Their lunar calendar. The sun god, they birthed after the 17th of December to the 24th. They would barbecue that man after having sex with man, beast, and woman. It was a orgy, an old Roman, remember, they outlawed it here in the Americas. Remember, they would fine you and throw you in jail, remember? Because they knew it was a celebration of this Yule, this pagan, they came here fleeing that same ritual. That's how this country was founded. We know Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. He came here fleeing, the Catholic Inquisitions. They were going out and impaling people on stakes, and they were savages. The Catholic Church, Catholicism, that rebranding of paganism and Christianity at the time of Rome, Constantine, where he came up with the Edict of Toleration because he thought he was going to lose his empire. He was slaughtering Christians, those Vandals, those Gothic tribes, celebrating that tree worship and sun. The same Mass, the Feast of the Yule, the Feast of Saturn, the Sacrament of the Mass. This is all the same thing. Catholicism, the deadly head wound that was outlawed, that was that was healed. Remember, brought back by Constantine when he combined all this. Said, okay, You stop slaughtering all these Vandals and Gothic and Visigoths and Ostrogoths, all these churches, the Samaria to the north of Israel, were all going after this Baal in the grove. This is what Ahab's children were taught by Jezebel. And it spread throughout the northern 10 tribes. Remember, like wildfire. Father split the kingdom for exactly that. And they're still celebrating it today. Remember, they would throw you in jail. This church, Catholicism, this is the deadly head wound again, where Constantine said, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll come up with this edict of toleration. We'll allow your pagan gods and these tree gods and sun gods into our church here. And Christianity will combine it. It's called Catholicism, which is a worship that's with Mary and Horus and Isis and Jesus and all this. December 25th, birthed in the middle of the winter. We don't celebrate birth. There's only 2 birth dates in all of Scripture. So you'll know when somebody's never read Scripture and sat down and had a relationship with the Word, because there's only 2. One of them's the birth of their sun god Apollyon, Mithra, whatever you want to call it, the Mass A, Christ Mass, Jesus Christ, birthed on December 25th. Remember, the shepherds were in the field. They were in the fields with the sheep when the Hamashiach, the Messiah, was birthed. And we don't celebrate birth. That's Satanism. Celebration of the self, the birth of the sun god on December 25th. This is nonsense, brothers and sisters. Their sun god is Jesus Christ, December 25th, the one that was outlawed. Remember, the one Constantine brought back, and remember, is still now celebrated is the Christ Mass. Mass A is the eating of flesh. That's Catholicism. Eat my body and drink my blood. That's cannibalism and vampism. Remember, they did this celebration for thousands of years, and again, it was outlawed. What part of Revelation has come to pass? Well, how about Revelation 12? Do you know the celestial gospel? How about that? How about 13? Another great sign in the firmament, a great red dragon. Were you there for a witness? How about the Star of David? You ever the rebirth, remember? First he said he would come in the stars, remember? There would be signs in the stars, sun and moon, right? No, second he would come in the stars. First he came in the flesh, remember? Father had to birth through the Vesica Pisces, that Star of David, the morning star and the king star, Venus and Jupiter. Do you know anything about the celestial gospel? Probably not. I don't think these people have any idea about Revelation. They don't know what Revelation is. So welcome to Revelation. The celestial firmament said it so, not I. I don't make the yuga cycles. I'm just celestial magi, can have a celestial eye, be given celestial bliss, to be a witness. We're supposed to, remember, look up, for your redemption draweth nigh. Remember, you can't go to the clock above your head. These people are idiots. They think heaven's above their head. Dead people go to the sky. This is what religion does to people. Makes them vain. Remember Jeremiah? They don't read any of the scriptures. They are watered down. This is the meat. He said, eat of the meat. Remember? Malachi, you don't read the books, do you, at all? The scriptures are written on stone tablets. Remember Old Testament time of the Torah, the law, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, the 613 statutes, commandments. We're not under laws of flesh. Remember? We're destined. Learn the difference, remember? Like the celestial firmament markers that are left. Remember the birth of the virgin. It's there. It's all there for the celestial eye to see, but most people have not an understanding that they live in a completely new age. We're not in the age of deception. Remember, age of the birth from fire to water. Through the Vesica Pisces, as all of us are birthed through the amniotic fluid. So, but interesting how these people have no celestial eye, do not know the celestial gospel. Firmament markers have been left above their head. That's right. Spiritual witnesses, spiritual Jews, spiritual, inwardly spiritual Jews, spiritual Israel. Yes, once written on stone tablets, the law, flesh, agape, blotted out in the book of Colossians 2 and 14 is now sprinkled with the blood of the Lamb. Remember, they ripped his beard out of his face, stretched him back so he couldn't breathe. That's why they like to do their I can't breathe ritual on everybody with their, was it COVID backwards? Devak. Yeah, these people get Devak out of here. So, oh, yeah, a big old scamdemic, huh? Stand on the XXX66. Yeah, right. I've seen too many Wile E. Coyote cartoons fall for that one. Never did. So, with their big masquerade, yeah, you notice at all these satanic parties, they all wear masks, huh? So, they know what they're doing. It's a world stage. Remember, it's a big club, like George Carlin said, and you're not in it. So, not really. It's like the same. Yeah, the COVID backwards. So, Devak. Get the Devak out of here. So, it's the way she girds. So, either way, it's okay. Remember, Father creates all things. Be not anxious, he said, right? I mean, Isaiah 45 and 7, creates this calamity, chaos, and evil. Father creates evil, so you ain't seen nothing yet. It's about to get a lot more evil from here. So, so isn't it silly? Are invisible. Yeah, there's no interpretations in here there, Charles. You have to have aletheia. You know what the word aletheia is, Charles? It says many. He said anybody who adds is antichrist. Remember, Scorpizzo, false teacher. The first ones he deals with, satanic adversary to his agape. Remember his love under this is a testament, not bound by flesh, but remember, let vengeance be mine. It doesn't say Lord. Lord's the word master. These people like to add like the word God or Jesus or Lucifer. There's no such thing, and none of those words exist in Scripture. Neither does the word devil. It's the word demonion, and they have no definition. Remember, he said, "I am the aletheia." I don't speak any Greek. Remember, old Jewish book written in Greek. So they have no aletheia in them, no truth. Remember, they don't speak. Dialectus glossa. That's the word glossa. Like in a book, they don't know. A book is what do you mean, Bible? Bible, that means book. It wasn't written on paper. Remember, it's written on fleshy tables of the hearts of his bride. So they don't know their ass, is somebody who can't learn. The Hamashiach, there was no such word as Christ. Christ doesn't exist in text. The scriptures never once does it say the word Christ. For Christ's sake. God damn it. God is a title. Never does it say high, right? Yes, the most high God. Yes. Not in the sky. Heaven's not above your head. They have no definition in them. They have no aletheia, no truth. Hell, what the hell are you talking about? Below your feet? Hell's not below your feet. Hell's the word knowledge. Remember Revelation 9:11? They have a king of no knowledge, bis. My people shall perish like a bis. Knowledge. They'll gnash teeth, remember? Father sent his son, the word became flesh. Shiloh, Hokodesh, the one who has the high priest of the church, remember? It's all been filled. It's not Aaron and Levite. We're not bound by the Old Testament laws of Aaron or flesh. The Most High doesn't dwell in temples made by hands, remember? The Most High, temples made by hands. I'm not bound by any law of flesh, remember? He fulfilled all the laws of flesh. These people are, what do they call them? Brutish. They have an unwillingness to learn aletheia's truth. They don't want to define any definition. If you leave the definition, you leave the truth. That's what he said. I am the hados. I'm the narrow way. And they have their own translations. They like to make their own interpretation. He said, don't add a jot or a tittle. That's the very last things he said. Like plagues, he said, you see, of all the plagues, they're written in these, remember, in the scriptures, in the text. Now on hearts of fleshy tables with blood, it's written. Not bound by laws of flesh, not lawless, but not, remember, destined, bought and paid, purchased possession from the foundation of the world. He said vessels of wrath and vessels of mercy. It's not in them. They have no truth. He said, I am the Hados, I am the Aletheia, I am the Habrizo, I am the way, the truth, and I am the separator of the dark and the light. That's predestination. There is purchased possession. There's bride. Remember, he took flesh to be with Father. That's inside, remember? Tables. We don't sup with vipers. We're not to, no, we're not. Agape is love, and 2 John and 6 tells us to go bear witness, remember? If we love him, we'll walk and follow in his commandments. That's what he commands us in Luke to do, correct? His disciples, take up our cross. Matthew, deny thyself. That's why he didn't, remember, self-will. There's no free will, idolatry. They have no definition in them. That's why he divorced his bride. She cheated on the law. Old Testament, remember? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That was the Torah. One sin was death. You add one jot, death. One tittle, death. One thought, that's idolatry, death, he said, to his agape. And he tells us, if we're his disciples at Luke and Matthew, to take up our cross, carry our cross. Are you carrying your cross? Are you taking up your cross? Are you getting your stripes out there? Remember, to love him is not phileo. That's the things of the world. That's the people, they been there, done that. He said, don't add or take away, don't shave off, or he knows where the dice will land. You can weight them. You can try to stack the deck and cheat. Father knows where every card lies, where it will fall. That's right. Everything not written and ever will be. That is Father. Father's creator. Father's sovereign. Father is I am. Remember, Father is the ram because Christ is the lamb. And Christ's a pagan term, never written in the scriptures, but we'll use your pagan dialect, your alien Jesus. Well, Jesus, J, there's no J's in Hebrew or Greek, so who is Jesus? You use that term. How about Paul? Okay, he said another Jesus. Is that the Jesus like Christ? Never says Christ. He said many will come in my name, saying they are Christ. Master is Lord. Remember, he says you can't serve two masters. Christ means anointed. Remember, in blood he paid. So are you carrying your cross? Are you getting your stripes? Do you know how to carry a cross? You know, nobody ever carried crosses. Nobody ever hung from crosses. No, okay, let's see if Charles, I think Charles is too much here. I'm not paying attention. Charles is speaking some, I seen a word he picked out. So Charles, define the word Nephilim to me. Give me the word Nephilim, because you don't know the definite. Nephilim is the same thing as demonion, basically, or pornea, what people call free will, or whatever you think. There's no gods in the sky. Heaven is not above your head, so there's no angels not fallen from anywhere above. That's not what angelos is. The word angel. Don't sound like you've ever read the scriptures in any Old Testament Hebrew or can speak any. Froward is a Hebrew word to twist or pervert, or so. Define the word Nephilim through the lexicon. That's a dictionary, Old Testament, Hebrew, New. Remember, it was an old Jewish book and written in Greek. So define the word Nephilim for me. So I think you're taking Nephilim out of context, because so does the whole wide world. They think they're spinning on a ball. There's no such thing as, would you like to tell me in scripture where it says there's one planet? Or did Father create a planet? So never studied extinction or evolution. These go hand in hand, but they think if a man evolved from apes, why are there still apes? They don't know what evolution is, but that's okay. They think they're going to grow a kickstand, just sit there and get stuck on dumb. So define the word Nephilim. Tell me the definition of Nephilim. Because remember, Nephilim is not the word Anunnaki, and that's the word giant. So Nephilim doesn't have anything to do with how tall or how many inches or kilometers or whatever meters meters a man or a woman is. Okay, so that doesn't have, it's not the word Nephilim. So Nephilim is the word demonion, which is a distributor of fortunes or lies. A bully is what it is. Bully. It's not the word Anunnaki or giants, but giants don't come from the sky. Father never came from the sky. Father created the stars. Father didn't come from the stars. Father is creator. Father created the stars, sun, and moon. So these people got it back ass words. And ass is somebody who can't learn. The Hamashiach would call you a brutish beast or brutish in nature. You have an unwillingness, stubborn, cannot be taught. You know, you're not an idiot. An idiot is somebody who is unskilled, unlabored, uneducated, a lame man, a simple woman, a simple man. It's the same. That means they've never seen or heard. But I'm giving you the definition. So people like to do their twisted stories with their cracker Jesus, their sky daddy nonsense. God's in the sky. Father doesn't. Heaven's not above your head. He had a pride, and that's Old Testament. And that's sin. Wages of sin is death. Now it's vengeance be mine, saith the Lord. So I don't want you to spread more bullshit. How about that? Oh, slipped. Well, it's crap. People they don't like to define anything. So let's see what he's saying. Okay, but there's giants are real. David slayed an Anunnaki. They were told to go into after they remember Ahab had taught and Ahab had been, his children were taught by Jezebel all this Baphomet worship. Their God of three in one God, three genders. They're man, beast, and woman. They had a bestiality ritual. Remember, they thought they could pray they thought the sun was dying at the equinox. They prayed to Saturn to try to slow the sun. This went on for how long? They barbecue a man with sex with beast, man, and a woman. This is called Christmas under another name. It was the Christ Mass. The Mass is the eating of human flesh. They would eat that king after a week of barbecuing him with, again, eating this man got to be at a lottery back at Rome. Remember the time Rome, they had red and blue back then. Same thing they're doing with people today. Democrat or bloodbakin, it don't matter, donkey, acting like an ass, or they know it all like some elephant. That's not other. They remember or don't remember. I don't want to hear it. These people have lost their understanding. Ahab's children were taught this Baphomet worship. Grove is Moloch. Remember, throw your kids in the fire. Krampus, Saturn, Grove, tree worship, like the Cabra, the box. So there was no fallen doesn't mean from the sky. Heavens aren't above your head. Fallen is from the ruling class. That's what the word heavens is. Earth is the rule, and most people are ruled by their alien English dead tongue. Alien is what it is. Alien is a word. Alien is a word. Alien is a word. There's no such thing as aliens. Alien is a word. Now they've given it, a space, a time, and a place, and there's nothing coming from the sky. This is all worshiping of Moloch, tree worship, sun, Baal, in the grove. The same thing, he divorced his bride because Ahab, remember, he doesn't want us to yoke. He split the kingdoms for exactly this, for people going after sun gods and tree gods, and Moloch was Esau's brother. He killed his brother Moloch and stole his inheritance. And this is all about receiving our inheritance, having a crown to set at the feet of Shiloh when he returns, so that we will be with Father, which is not some place in the sky. It's written on fleshy tables of the hearts of the bride, not those by serpent like Leviathan in the garden, what people call devil. That's a distributor of fortunes or lies to others. So I make sure I've made mistakes, and because Father makes me love this word so much that I started defining. That's hados. I am the narrow way. That's translation. The whole world is in phileo. They have their own version. He said, don't add a jot or a tittle. So I make sure that we don't, fall doesn't mean from the sky. That means you've fallen from the word. Again, his heavens, his pride. Remember, no weapon formed against you will prosper if you agape me. If you don't go after these sun gods and true gods in the sky, they'll put no gods before me. And don't make up your own laws, your own version. That's idolatry. Distributor fortunes or lies to self, an idolater, right? is idolatria. This is exactly what he divorced his bride for, and going after gods in the sky. And they're doing it again. The whole world's doing it. It's not 2025. People are lost in space. Where the hell does it say there's space? So you got it all. This is exactly what we're not supposed to do. So we're not supposed to sup with those that are not in the narrow way, it says. Somebody's in the broad way. Broad is the way that leads to the pit where the viper's at. No knowledge. Krampus. Tammuz. Apollyon. The same thing that's going on. They're just sensational. There's no gods in the sky. That's Baal worship of deities. Like they pray to fortunes for their dead ancestors. They'd have a burnt offering of a dead man after orgy, marinate him with sex, meat, beast, man and woman. He'd eat of the finest veals and cheese. He was lotteried off. So obviously it was one man, they got to eat him, and that is their Catholicism, that we're not to eat flesh. Although sacrifice of flesh in Old Sacrifice Testament, take your son, remember Abraham, Isaac, up to the altar and sacrifice. Remember, Father required blood on the doorway, the post marked of your head of your doorway. And you got an address, you on the grid, you one of those, this is, people have fallen for these Old Testament laws and put themselves right back under, and you rip the Hamashiach right down from the Aletheia, the truth, the testament that he made, the prophecies that he fulfilled, all the rituals, feasts, fines, celebrations. We're not celebrating any of these things. Do not partake in these unfruitful works of darkness. It tells us, learn not their ways in the book of Jeremiah, their customs, their traditions, their wheel worship. He's telling you about these old time customs where they would celebrate this middle of the winter. That's not the New Year's. April Fools, new life and New Year springs up when? Hello. These people are perverted, and the whole world does it again. And these are the things that people go after that we're told not to do. This is the phileo, just like Peter. He couldn't figure it out. We've all been there, but you got to rob Peter to pay Paul. Remember, he said, I'm not asking you, Peter, if you phileo me. Do you agape me, Peter? So you're trying to make this something other than definition. And if you leave the definition, you leave the truth. So there's no gods in the sky. Ahab married Jezebel. She taught this to the children. This 3-in-1 God, Father, Son, and Ruach. Remember, holy, pure. Paul said, blameless, the inner man that cannot sin, right? Ruach is holy, pure, Hokadesh, spirit. Ghost is the word, There's no ghost. So people have lost their minds, brothers and sisters. They go after this Baphomet worship, which is Jesus Christ, or Mithra at the time of Rome is what it was called. Their sun god, where they perverted the calendar, where their New Year starts in the middle of the winter. This worship of this Yule is the swastika symbol that Hitler, Nazi, hello, Germany, here we are again. World War II equals World War III, but people don't see it. Same thing. Nothing. They don't change. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I know. I'm militant. I'm a United States Army veteran. I understand how that works. So I'm not going to tell me, but I'm a soldier for the word. And I am like that. He said, guard my commandments. Don't let nobody change my agape. My truth is aletheia. Agape is love. And if you love him, then that's what you do. You mother people. You correct them with the word. You show them to the narrow way. But they don't love these truths. They love their own version. That's phileo. That is idolatry. Remember, Ahab married Jezebel. She taught this to the children, and that led Jeremiah and Judah. But then, remember, they succumbed to this same tree gods and grove worship, Moloch, and the same thing. Tammuz, the son of Satan, all this re-erect, the palm tree. Remember, it says in Jeremiah, the rebirth, the standing, for one cutteth the tree out of the forest, talking about this Moloch worship. Saturn to try to slow the sun. They were pagans. They were idiots. They didn't understand the Yuga cycles. Like today, people think it's 2026. 2026. They think you could go to the clock above your head. They're all in it. Remember, even the current POTUS, 4 + 5 is 9, 4 + 7 is 11, POTUS 9/11. He's in on it too with his space farce. Remember, he made his, with his stinky Starlink muskrat buddy and all their microwave electric toasters, all this, whatever, kicking down doors now with brown shirts, just like at the time, World War II. You ever seen the movie The Wall? Might want to go back and watch that. You don't need to be high on some, or drunk. When he says being drunk, he's not talking about alcohol too. He's talking about mixing leaven, like leaven's the whole lump, so with sin, with this easy nonsense cracker burnt in the middle of the winter Jesus. He said many Christ, so it's all of them. It's this rebranding again of this sun god and tree god, this Baphomet worship, man, beast, and woman. Baby manger Jesus is what it is, more than a manger. That's not a scene. The Hamashiach was not birthed in the middle of the winter. There was many magi. There were not 3 wise men. They gave 3 gifts, and the Hamashiach, the Messiah, was almost 3 years old when they came into Bethlehem, not a baby. That's all the worship of Catholicism, Satanism, Krampus, Esau. Remember his brother Moloch? He stole his inheritance. Remember, these are the ones that are left, like Cain and Abel. You keep forgetting all this lineage, huh? It's about a wedding more than anything. So that's what religion does to people. It waters them down. They can't even take the time to define one word. They start going after all this Baphomet worship. They remember once they had, Jeremiah and Judas has come to this, same worship of this tree god and Baal and the grove sun god. He told them to go into the land of Anak, not Anakin Spacewalker, with their nonsense where, they had a threesome. Anakin Spacewalker had with Chewbacca, they had Wookiee with an Ewok, and now we got big feet walking around on this rock too, right? We got big feet. People just believe whatever they want, brothers and sisters. Believe is not a thought in your head. That's not what the word believe is. So you can think you can believe in something, but it's a verb. Let me take you back to school. Yeah, that's what it is. Faith is a noun, and you got to put legs on faith. Remember, have your lamps trimmed and be girded in my service, be burning bright. So people aren't burning bright for this gospel. They're not. They don't love this. They want their other Jesus, as Paul said, other gospel. And that's what Christ said. You add a jot, that's the other gospel. Another tittle, that's the other gospel. Another thought, that's the other gospel. There's only one gospel that he spoke of, remember? That's through his disciples. It's the 13th apostles, right? 13th apostle. Paul too's writings. Can't leave out, the 12 plus Paul's. That is the gospel, So, but people don't love these 13 books. They go after Old Testament law, put themselves under Old Testament laws of flesh that the Hamashiach fulfilled, as he said when he hung on that tree, not on a cross. Nobody hung on crosses. The cross is crucifixion. Remember, Peter was crucified as he still was being rebuked and walking in repentance by the word Father, and the Hamashiach, Shiloh in the flesh, and asked to be crucified upside down. That's your peace sign. John was crucified on an X. Crucifixion Romans were masters at torture. Their favorite way was crucify a man on a tree. And he would form the shape of a cross, but nobody carried crosses. And in Matthew, he tells you to carry your cross. So I hope you understand what a cross is. It's to be hated. He said, if you are loved by the world, you'd be hated by my Father. So you're not here to be loved. The word nice means to be stupid. So go ahead, just be stupid when it comes to the word. That's not for me to decide. Remember, an ass is somebody who can't learn. You're not going to turn a goat into a sheep. It's not possible. Vessels of wrath fitted for destruction from the foundation of the world. Father chose who would be called out in that book of life at the wedding supper, remember? And he tells us not to sup with vipers. So people don't want these truths. Don't worry about it. They're not going to, Father didn't love everybody. In Old Testament, he only loved his pride, his heavens, Aaron and Levi. These were the Gentiles, right? No, these were the Jews. If you were not related to these 2 houses of Aaron and Levi, you were called a Gentile. So he only loved his pride, the Jews. So again, if you were not, if you were Gentile, you weren't under the laws. Father didn't care about the Sabbath, Sabbatic law, and resting on the 7th day, let the land lie fallow, the dietary laws, choose the cud, split hoof, doesn't know pork, no, scaleless, all these, dietary laws and laws of the Levitical laws, a high priest of Aaron and Levite, those only applied to the Jews, to the Torah. Remember Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So Father didn't love everybody back then, and he don't love everybody now. He's an all loving because he fulfilled both Jew and Gentile, man and woman. Remember, they didn't go into the wilderness and scout out the giants. The Anunnaki is the word giants, brothers and sisters. People love to sensationalize and, again, make words something that they're not. So they're doing the same thing again, with these words, that Father is the Word. So you better have a relationship with the Word. And they've made this like this. They've made this English dead language to be less people, make them be less and understand, and instead of overstand and put you in the mourn, and you wake because somebody, you have a wake when somebody dies and you mourn. We're actually in the book of Ecclesiastes 7:1. It tells us not to mourn. It tells us to celebrate death, and we're actually not supposed to celebrate anything under this covenant. We give thanks and glory, and again, but not mourn. They get to get off this rock. It's just going to get worse. That's where we're at. It tells us that in sorrows is where we're at. You ever read the book of Revelation? You ever read any of the scriptures, any of the Old Testament? Figure out which laws have been blotted out so you don't keep putting yourself under these Old Testament laws of flesh. Remember, in Paul's writing, that's why you can't leave Paul's writings out. He tells us in Ephesians 6:11, wrestle not against flesh. We're not under these Old Testament laws, to have sacrifice and eye for an eye, and remember, tooth for a tooth. That's old. Now it's let vengeance be mine, he said, be it the Lord's. So we must turn our cheek, he said, be meek and not weak, is different. So 490 times a day sometimes in this hard world we live in. But we need to let Father fight our battles for us. We can protect ourselves, but we're not to go out and seek vengeance, and that's the hard part in living today. And that's the world we live in, where even under the, 2,600 plus years ago, he made this testament. And so this nation once was a blessed nation. Remember, they fled this sacrament of the Mass, came over here and set up colonies. Remember, Jamestown, the nation state, all this, but this has all been taken away. Remember, it, they had a revolutionary war, but remember, the laws that, govern this, that are still here under the Constitution. George Washington said no foreign entanglements. What happened to that? We are not to go, no taxation without representation. What happened to that? This is a fascist nation that I live in now, whether people understand. I don't, that's what we're seeing. They're combining. We go take over in other countries and kidnap their presidents and then say we're going to go take their resources. That's fascism. This is way worse than WW2. This is WW2 equals WW323 ritual that they do. 9/23, 12/23, the Samhain, 3/23 in the spring, 6/23, their sun god. This is all this celebration again. Everybody's doing it, outlawed in this country, but it's not just here in America. Remember, it's all flesh under this covenant, Jew and Gentile, man and woman, black, white, brown, red, and yellow. Remember, there's 12 eggs in a dozen, right? A whole. So that's when he said all flesh, in the scriptures, in this New Testament, he didn't mean everybody. Remember, he didn't love everybody back then. He doesn't love everybody now. He only loves those that are out there bearing a witness, taking up their cross daily and denying this world and not doing the world, actually being separated in prison, not literally, but, some will be thrown in for standing up to his perversion. I'm a constitutionalist, and it's cost me dearly. I'm not sovereign. Sovereign means you're above the law. There's only one sovereign. That is Father. Father is creator of the law. Remember, everything not written. So there's no luck, or there's no free will, and there's no prophecy. Remember, the unblemished sacrificial lamb, when they came to break his legs, he had already passed. And that Father, he's perfect. Again, he's the Christ, the anointed, the one that's inside of us. He says the eye is the lamp of the body. So if the eye is supposed to be single, if it's filled with darkness, then the whole vessel, the whole lamp is filled with darkness. The eye is filled with light, then the vessel, remember, and our body is that vessel. He's the one steering the ship. So hope you understand what the scriptures are telling you. I can only share them with you, and then it's for me not to decide to condemn. I judge with righteous under this testament, righteous judgment. So if people are in the broad way, and most people are in the broad way, it says that. So you're supposed to agape everybody the same. Love thy neighbor like thy enemy, like thyself. And love isn't like baking cookies and hot cross top buns and feed you a bunch of sugar. Love is put the word on you, show you to the narrow way. If you don't like it, Father will condemn. Remember, he separates the wheat from the chaff. So those that are grafted in the vine, white, black, brown, red, and yellow, all flesh, 144,000 is not a literal number. That's the parable that it is both Jew and Gentile. It is man and woman. You know, the 12 tribes of Israel was all the 12 tribes of the family of the Old Testament, but we're not bound by those laws. Remember, 12 times 12 was 144. So, hallelujah. That's the gospel, baby. That's the gospel that, remember, 12 eggs in one dozen, the whole, you know, all flesh, but not everybody. Father only loves his bride, but go share it. You know, isn't that beautiful? We're not bound by these celebrations and old laws and fees and rituals. Actually, we're not to do these things. And that's why we are crucified, because the world wants to keep celebrating their sun gods and their tree gods and their worship of their orgy Jesus, their nonsense, their sky daddy, you know, their gods in the sky. Nobody dies and goes to the sky. Father didn't come from the stars. Father created the stars. Grow up. The sun and the moon. He didn't create one planet. If you tell me there's a planet, you need to leave. Tell me where the scriptures, Old Testament, the rejected texts, that's ones that weren't canonized. Where does it say the word planet? Where do we live on a planet? Take your earthly nonsense away from me. Earth is the ruled, heavens is the ruling class. That's the word. You just don't love the truth. The truth is the word aletheia. I can't change goats into sheep or sheep into goats. Not for me to decide. It's already chosen. That's the beautiful thing about the gospel. You know, predestination in Paul's writings, again in Romans. Go back and read Paul's writings. You got to read the Gospels, man. That's where it's at. Remember, they stoned him, you know, for sharing it, and he was a Pharisee, you know, and he was a murderer. He killed Christians like Constantine for the church, you know. And if Father could rebuke his heart, then, you know, who am I to decide, like the thief on the cross, on who he takes to be in heaven? And that's not above your head. So I want to go back and study the scriptures. Remember, if you love me, no, you know, your enemy will come against you one way and I'll make them flee 7 ways. And if you don't love me, then your enemy will come against you one way and I'll make you flee 7 ways. So the 7, you know, horns of Revelation, the seals, you know, the writers of the apocalypse, you know, that's Revelation. Welcome to Revelation. We're far past seeing the rider on the white house or the white horse, right? There's 2 riders on white horses. You might want to go back and study the scriptures. You know, one brings the toxon, that means bow and arrow, you know, the jab, the bringer of the disease and the cure of the disease. That's Mithra, the one they ate, the body of the king on December 25th in the middle of the winter in a manger. Their God has breast, beast, man and woman, hoof, horn, and breast or beast, remember? So Father doesn't have flesh. Remember, Father created the flesh. The word became flesh. That's Shiloh, the one that redeems his bride. But Christ didn't have breast. Their God has breast. So you see why this whole world is infatuated with it. Even girls gone wild too. They love it. In this modern day world we live in, don't think, hey, they did it at the time of Rome. Nothing new under the sun. That's why I like to pervert these things and take people back and erase their history and rewrite it over and over again. How do you think these 8, 10, 12 families, whatever, keep reign for thousands of years? Because well, it's written that way. Father creates evil, Isaiah 45:7. So he's good at what he does. Remember, they're not done yet. So remember what happened during WW2. You should see that recycle, come back and revitalize, you know, rebirth. Their spiritual antichrist is what they're missing. They go and fall for the physical. Paul said, wrestle not against flesh. So they'll reveal a physical antichrist, but there's no physical anything under this testament. It was all the laws of flesh were fulfilled, physical laws. So we're not under, remember, he said, let vengeance be mine. So No stone left upon another. He destroyed the physical temple, the physical rituals, all the celebrations, all the fees and fine. He doesn't like that. Remember, he turned over the over the money changer tables. They had made their perversion of the Old Testament law into their halakha and their haggadah, a written and an oral law, you know. Um, but most people don't study that, and that's fine. It's not for me to decide who's a goat and who's a sheep. But when he brings you to these truths, you realize how much perversion of, in times past, you'll go back and you'll make sure you get the base. You got to go study these dialects, these languages. You need an interpreter. It didn't mean speaking in tongues. It meant when somebody spoke in a tongue, it was a foreign alien. How about that? Alien is foreign, the word foreign, not some physical being, space or place, or there's no aliens. There's another one. The whole world is fallen for that. Remember, fallen? Yeah, fallen. Doesn't mean from the sky. Heaven's not above your head. So I can't make people accept these truths. You find it through studying and discovery. Remember in scriptures it says, asking you shall receive. Well, first he'll make you seek and ye shall find, and that's where you find it. You find it in Old Testament Hebrew by studying not just the language, but cultures and customs, and things change. The languages, the dialects, they're foreign, and they change. Look at the English language. It's a dead language where they literally make people understand and, put people under these dead words again, like waking and dying and mourning and celebrating and all these things we're not bound by any of these laws of Old Testament. And that's the problem with societies. They think that's where they're going to get to Father, is by celebration or having more or less. And it says those with more will have less and those with less will have more. So you're not going to get there. Only by faith are you saved. And to be saved is, again, the Greek word sozo, why you should study the Greek. He tells us we must endure to the end to be saved. And the word sozo means to be carried, lifted, picked from beginning point to an ending point and healed over here. So nobody's been saved until he comes back at the last trump. That's the great and dreadful day of the Lord. That's the deciding process. That's judgment. Well, how old you think this rock, how many times you think people have been here or not, we're all eternal, whether you like it or not, but one judgment, one book of judgments. And that's the final trump. That's where the wedding feast of the Lambs, where they're divided. Those that have their names written in the book of remembrance are those that fear, and we only fear the Lord. He said, be not anxious, fear not, only God's flock, or it's Father's pleasure to give you that kingdom of heaven, that kingdom of God, which you think it's not in the sky, it's within the kingdom. That's why the Messiah was such a threat to the church at the time too, because he was teaching this to his disciples. We're going out and sharing this same gospel, that the kingdom of heaven, Paul's writings, again, we have an inner man, circumcise the outer flesh, the outer man. We're not underbound, wrestle not against flesh and blood. He's perfect. He's sovereign. He's blameless. He can't sin. He does these things, and he tells us to not, come out of her, my people. Again, we're not under these Old Testament laws of flesh. He is the Redeemer. He's the one who's going to come back, and those who stand. And remember, I tattooed my hands on like that. The Most High doesn't dwell in temples. The Most High in temples made by hands, because he destroyed all these physical temples. He called them out again. Remember, they wanted a place. Didn't go into the wilderness, scout out the giants, the Anunnaki. They were eating flesh. So they came in and turned every building into little gravel, including the temple. They plowed salt into the land. So they, wouldn't return. They wandered for 40 years. Every day they didn't go in and scout out the giants, the Anunnaki, not fallen angels. Remember, for every 40 days they were told, they came back, said, we're like grasshoppers. He made them wander 1 year for every day they didn't go into the land of Anak, which is modern day Gaza. So you need to study these things. The Philistines or the Palestinians or the Philistine or the champions. This is where the giants were at. Remember, these people think giants come from the sky. Fallen doesn't mean the sons of God are doing the will of the Father. That's written in Scripture. Your brothers and your sisters and your mother are those that do the will of the Father. Fallen means they're not doing the will of the Father. These people think fallen angels mean Fallen doesn't mean from the sky. That is the sensational of space worship. This is antichrist worship, worship of tree and sun and tree. They put the light over the top of the Christmas tree. Their masse is the eating of flesh. They thought they could have a burnt offering of a man after barbecuing him with, remember, in beast sex with man, beast, and woman, and then eat his body. That is the birth of Mithra, the sun god at the time of Rome. You can call him whatever. In Revelation, it says he's the king of the abyss, Apollyon, or Abaddon, or Abaddon. You call him whatever you want. You know, he had a 58-story tower in Manhattan. I mean, Babylon. Oh, wait, Trump's got one, or Mr. Chump's got one in Manhattan decorated with Mithra, Apollyon, Satan, the sun god, the god of three genders, tree, right, and sun, and tree worship, Baal in the grove, same thing that was outlawed. Remember, well, that's what they did. Remember, 40 years for doing the same thing. Father made them wander in the desert. They didn't have a place to study, so he gave them the synagogues. Remember the rabbis, and then the time of Christ, the Hamashiach, they became the Pharisees, those that could still speak the Old Testament Hebrew. Remember, they were called the Sadducees. So they didn't like, obviously people who could speak that Old Testament. You can't take Hebrew and then translate it to Aramaic now into English. It gets lost in translation. So they didn't literally translate the transliteration, meaning they made their own law. Haggadah and Halakha were laws of oral. You could write it down, or you could speak it, but you couldn't write it down, which was the Halakha, and the Haggadah, like the law was given orally, and then they wrote it, remember, into the 10 Commandments, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, the Old Testament Torah, right? The 613 statutes, commandments in those first 5 books, which is the law, right? Remember, now this same laws of flesh are blotted out and sprinkled with the blood of the Lamb on fleshy tables of the hearts of the bride. So do you know which laws were blotted out? Do you know what we're not supposed to be doing under Old Testament law that he fulfilled? Remember, they hung him from a tree like a bride would go and be released from her bill of marriage and given a bill of divorce, and half of what the owner, remember, man owned, right? So she could be legally, remember, that's why he said, you forwarded my father's agape when they created this halakha and haggadah, not releasing these women from these contracts of marriage. And this is all about a wedding, where we're going in the contract, because we're not bound by law. We're not. This is about the destiny. This is about a wedding, not the law. He covers us for the sins of the world, because we're not lawless, but we don't do just like the Constitution said. If it's not adjudicated through the House, Congress, and Senate, we have a judicial, legislative, and executive branch. It's repugnant. If you follow those laws, you follow those corporate laws, then you're going to be judged as a corporation. I tell you now, as a witness, judge that shall be judged. The measure you pour out will be returned on to you. So you better get with what the scriptures say. Remember, I don't like the word Bible. That's a childish word, and it shows the ignorance of most people. Never read it or seen it, opened it up, and had a relationship with the word once in their life. They're religious, and that's what religious does. It waters people down. I don't care what demon nation or denomination you are attached like a demon. A demon is a distributor of fortunes or lies. Remember, they used to pray to their deities. Demons had a burnt offering of flesh in the middle of the winter to their sun god, Jesus Christ, or Mithra, or Beelzebub, or Nimrod, or Moloch, or whatever name. When it says he calls out your name in the book of life, and it could be like Tom, Dick, Sarah, Harry, Dick, or Stacy, or Terry. It's going to be your girded in my service. Were you bearing your cross? Were you my disciple? Were you out there being separated from the world? Because you remember, not supposed to be love, not supposed to do what the world's doing. The world's celebrating some spinning on a ball at 1,040 miles an hour, third rock from the sun in the third dimension, their Masonic ritual, 33, like they killed the Hamashiach at 33, third dimension, third rock from the sun, corkscrewing and spinning through time and space on their heliocentric model. They like to play shapes and talk about flat and round, and they're not anchored in, faith. Faith and faith alone, we're saved. But remember, we have to endure to the end to be saved. So don't fall for this world and their religious nonsense, because whatever demon nation, whether it's Catholicism, which is the deadly head wound of this celebration of the sun god, Jesus Christ, birthed in the middle of the winter. Just so you know, there's no J's in Hebrew and there's no J's in Greek. So don't freak out if I say there's no such thing as Jesus. And if you're going to use the term, you better figure out which Christ, which Jesus. He said, many come in my Shem. It says Shem, the second born of Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Shem met authority. So you better get with it. Better understand, we're not under that Old Testament law. He will do it to his bride, so don't worry about it. Father only writes the gospel on the hearts of the bride. Period. That's what it says. Fleshy tables in the book of Colossians 2 and 14. So remember, better go back and read Corinthians, Paul's writings about a marriage. Remember, Old Testament, he said, if you covet another man's wife, that is adultery. So he made this a spiritual. And if you even use remember David coveted Bathsheba, you're not going to use, you don't have to physically do it. You can even think about it. And that becomes it. This is Hokadesh. He is Hokadesh spirit. This is the spiritual law that his bride is bound by, not by fate, but destined. They are his purchased possession. Read it. It goes back to Paul's writings, Romans 8 and 29. I also did foreknow the ones I did predestine to conform to my image. So those are the ones he pulls from the darkness. He pulls from their flesh. He pulls from this sin, this meat suit, and he pulls us to the word, because he is the word. He is the light or the life, but is the word. Father is the word. You think you're going to somewhere in the sky. No, you're going to the word. That is heavens. That's where you're going. You think you die and go to heaven. Well, Father's the word, so he's going to hold you accountable for the words that you speak. Not your tongue. It knows no such thing as speaking in tongues. You had to have an interpreter, can't come in here and interrupt. Charles stopped talking and he just shut up, and I don't hear nothing out of nobody, but hopefully somebody hears this and it's not falling on deaf ears. Father gives this purpose. Maybe somebody on the restream. I've always said, even if just one person hears it, that's all that matters to me, and that's fine. Maybe even Father makes it fall on deaf ears. Who is it for me to decide? I can't turn goats into sheep. Just supposed to treat this all the same. Love thy neighbor like thy enemy, like thyself. Remember, go back to Matthew's writings, 10, 34 through 39. A man's enemy is to be the one of his own household. So you are your biggest enemy. I am my own. By self-will, I'll have my name blotted out of the book of life. And name doesn't mean 6 or 3 or 5 or Bob or Terry or Stacy or Tracy or Tom or Bob. Again, Robert. How about that? Bobbert. Not what it means by name. So, got to go back and have a relationship with the Word. And then when he helps you discover these things, then you can hold yourself more accountable, and then you can help others to show them to the narrow way. So, I'm still learning, but I know that I won't change. I keep the gospel unchanged. That's the one that I've been guilty of adding and fluffing before, and I don't need to. It stands on its own. He's an all-loving father, but he doesn't love everybody. He only loves his bride, the ones that conform to his image, the one he says, follow after me in the book of Matthew, my disciples, and Luke. What are you doing? What are you doing, puppy? Sorry, puppy's coming up to say hi to the dad. So ask the word, say Nephilim in here, and you'll get a history lesson, because Nephilim means bully. So don't bully people with your own version, because if you add a jot, that's the other gospel, and he tells you he'll throw you in hell. So that's the truth, and you got to love that, because Father will make you love it. It'll make you do what you're supposed to do. You'll do less of this phileo, this worldly nonsense. Idolatry is things you see, which he warns of. That's why he divorced his bride, because she went after idols and little statues and big tall buildings. Tried to build towers to the sky, Babylonian 58-story Nimrod towers, like the one in Manhattan with Mr. Warp Speed, Mr. Abaddon Chump. I love this puppy. I love my puppy. Oh, you are such a... Oh, he just wants to give Dad some... He's going to say hi. This is Bone. that we love. We're going to have to stoke the fire again here in a little bit, huh, Bo? Let's see what the fire's doing here. Get off me, you magnetic puppy, for 1 second. Magnetic puppy. Okay, we're going to have to throw some more wood on the fire. Hold on. Oh, we're going to have to get some more wood here. We have to go out and get some more wood in a little bit. Yes, we are. Want to stay warm? My puppy stays inside with the dad. He gets treated, spoiled, huh? Yeah, the puppy sleep with the dad inside. He's got his own bed, huh? Puppy's got his own bed. Okay, let me get... this started in here. All right, well, I thought I'd come in here and have a little discussion again about the metals, and we'd start talking about gospel because somebody said Nephilim, so we have to give the definition, the long definition of Nephilim. How about that? So, but again, thought I'd come in here and have a discussion. I know that not many people are holding on to silver or gold. It's a very small market, especially in the silver market. So some changes. Told people not be a bad time to take some profit, but looks like there's going to be a little bit of a backup. I don't see that. Doesn't make sense with what's out there if you look at it. How would there be a backup when even the APMEX person came on and said there's record people buying? So as long as the buying outpaces it, eventually it will come back around. It's really hard for these coin shops where I told you need to build a relationship, because that's where you're going to get your most money out of them if you have to liquidate them and you're trying to get cash. But hopefully one day you would trade them for a horse, a house, a car, water filtration system or something. You would find a good trade and never trade them back for paper dollars. So little lesson for those who are soft in the market. Soft hands get shaken out quickly. So this isn't something that's not a get rich quick. It's people don't hold it and haven't in the past. They hold it for generational wealth because they know that they can give it to their kids and their kids' kids. And the scripture tells us we're supposed to, try to, make it, put up things and for our children's children. So, have extra oil and be burning bright and trim our lamps. So make, hold things back. And what are you doing up there? Kitty came inside to warm up too. So that's the extra oil. And again, I know that there she is, pretty girl. You want to get a drink of water? She wants to go back outside. You gonna go get some breakfast finally? Dad got breakfast out there for you. Having a late breakfast. Late breakfast. So this isn't a big surprise to me that they can do something like this. It's brilliant. Put a backstop on this for a minute and kind of let it pool up and see what you got and see who's, put the last of this through. But I'm sure it'll be a phase. It looks like, again, silver takes off and keeps, reaching that. I think it's almost hit 120 or something. So it didn't close out at the high, intraday high of the market. So costs more to get it, $130 or something for a buffalo. So it's not cheap to buy it. How could there be such demand and then shut the markets off, say that the refiners don't take it? That's the big money doing it. Somebody has some sway in the market, and I think they're, again, try to remember they made copper and silver a critical metal on the 11th of November of 2025. So it's it's definitely it's a time where we should have kind of, some of this could have seen this coming. And I did try to get people to pull some profit out before there's this pause. So you're going to have to hang tight, it looks like, in this market. And I don't, and it's broken. The price in discovery is broken. This is getting too high, too fast. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and that's exactly what we've seen here in life. We should understand that when we get all, roaring 20s ish, like we have, kind of like back in the, in the early 20s of the 1920, the early, that blow up, and that's what we've seen. You can only, 100 days they print $1 trillion. That you'd have to come back here for every day I give you $1 million for 360,000 years. That's an unfathomable, unsustainable debt. So with compound interest, it just keeps going up to 1.5, 1.7, whatever. It's not sustainable. So should have seen this coming with markets, again, with, um, those that are in this market. You're not going to get your price out of it right now. And that's hey, there was a time, and now you're going to have to go back into a holding pattern. If you don't think it's worth it, then sell it for the cheap price that they're going to try to, they'll still move it, but it's not going to be, at the price that you're going to see, but it's still going to cost that to get online. So I caution you to, you know, on selling anything right now. If you can hold on to it, I'm not telling you, you better have food, and you better have already had water filtration, a way to protect it before you ever got into this precious metal sector. So I let everybody know that a billion times, it seems like, or many times. I don't try to ever talk about it and say put your treasure in a higher place before you worry about anything on this rock anyway. So, but if you can, multitask, and that's what Father wants us to be, wise as a serpent, you're going to be able to cover more than one thing. And so hopefully those that are taking some profit, like I said, pulled some out, and I still see silver going to $300 to $500. So we'll be at 150 before you know it. It's almost 150 right now to buy it online. A silver eagle is $134 for a United States silver eagle. The most widely recognized, most minted, not most minted anymore. They didn't hardly mint anything this last year, did they? So, and they haven't minted anything this year. So we'll see what goes on with future. I don't see that there's such a huge demand in industry, which gobbles up 80+% of the metal, that we need to sit there and freak out because some of these people that are in the collectible or jewelry sector are like, oh wow, I can't sell my metal right now. Well, you had a pretty good run up for a while. You had plenty of time to pull profit, and somebody on this channel told you it wasn't wrong to do that if you thought you wanted to hold it longer than you could. So you got fair warning here. I don't feel bad that anybody who maybe taken and put in a chunk, because I know people who had pulled some profit, and that's good for them, man. That's outstanding. Like I said, it's never wrong to pull at least to your original investment out of the sector. I'm not giving any kind of economic advice to anybody. Contact your Charles or whatever you're sticking in your ear, Schwab or whatever, before you make any movement in your monetary, whatever you want to call money. But again, it's a time where, to me, it shows me that it's almost like a reverse psychology with this thing. We're telling people that there's a backup at the refiners, and I know there has been a lot of people selling metal. There is. That's good. That's good. A lot of people have been pulling their profit. Hopefully they've been doing stuff with it before this, small, what I think is going to be a hiccup in the market. I don't think it's going to last. Supply and demand will beat out, was it 32 to 37 ounces in one of those batteries, whatever those, I can't remember the name of the battery, but these new, electric batteries that'll go 800 plus miles on a charge. And that's still not even 18th century, but we'll go there and just talk about it, because it takes the silver to do that. So uh, interesting times, like I said, some people are going to be really pissed that they're not going to get their money back out. Well, you wanted a lottery ticket and you didn't buy a lottery ticket. You bought something that they put away for generations. So I think the markets will come back up online, but it's going to be a whole lot. It's going to take at least for these coin shops, you know, the price action went up so fast that I don't blame these coin shops for having to shut down. They don't have the capital to do that. When people come in and sell $10,000 worth of metals, you know, at 5,000, 5,500 for gold, and it doesn't take much to clean one of these small coin shops out. So it's gonna be a little bit harder to sell your metal, but I do think in the future that these things will come back up online, and it may take some of these places to build up some more capital, and you know um, but I don't see the price of metal going down. It's just too valuable. Again, that silver, there's been a deficit for 6 years now, where there's been less, 2 to 300 million ounces that's been demanded by industry and the public and investors in jewelry. That hasn't been there, mostly by industry. So I don't think it's going to take long again for this hiccup in the market to. But I told you, what are you going to do when you can't price your silver in, dollars anymore? What are you going to do that day? So now maybe you came to that day. So that shouldn't be any alarm for you here as well. You should know that's God's money, and it's always been, and it's never gone to zero. You might have to be patient, like people waited for it to go from, you know, $20, which has stood forever right around there, to, finally break the $50 mark, which, you know, that'd have been a good time to pull profit for people. Well, it got all the way up to 100. That'd have been a good time to pull profit for people. It got up to over 100. That'd have been even better time. This channel started telling you this might not be a bad time for you to pull some of your profits. So I don't feel if anybody's stuck in this now that, that's you got to go back to the old school where some of us held on to this for a while, and it will resurface. I don't think it's going to take that long. I think the price of metal is going to keep going up. It's going to drive you nuts that you don't have nowhere to sell it, at those rates. And that's going to be first interesting time that we're in right now. So thank you, Father. They made it a critical metal. I told you that. They made copper a critical metal. They said, Trump came out and said that, in the event of national security. So they need it for their data mining. I think the government might be able to get ready to reprice it, because if you look at the disconnect between Shanghai, where it's over 30, 130 in most countries now, we're still just catching up at 115, so obviously it's needed. China shut off their processing about 40% of the white metal or silver, called the silver metal, this year, which, there you go. There's a backup right there. There's your backup right there. So you're going to have to hold on for dear life. And, you know, that's the way this market was for some time. It will, in my eyes, come back online. It's going to be a little bit different. Again, I think you need to start seeing, like I said, hopefully you've put away enough monetary where you can go get your basic essentials now. This might not be as easy to do it in silver. And so, well, maybe it'll pull back down. Maybe we need to, but it doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like his silver is coming back down. You can't hold silver. Was been held down for 180 years. They suppressed it like taking a ball under the water. That inertia, that buildup, it's going to spring out of there. So, of course, I don't think we've begun to see what is the real price of reality of what silver's value, true value is, as composed to gold. And again, I think it has more value in many ways, and that's why there's been a halt on it. And that's why somebody came up and bought the copper market out. Couldn't buy the silver market out, but this is how I think this is the way they've kind of cornered the silver market. So, for those who have ears to hear, hopefully you'll have thought about this and goes, well, hey, Pastor came in here and told us that, this may come a time where the commodities exchange price breaks, and that's not the real price of silver anymore, where there is no, and that is kind of right now, because, I've seen some places only giving 30% on the dollar right now, and that's a kick in the teeth real hard. But I would, that would be the last thing, I'd wait. Hopefully the price will pull back down, and then I'd pull the truck back in and try to get some more, because I've had mine taken over and over again because I told people where it was at. So don't tell anybody where it's at. That could come. They did confiscate silver in 1934. Everybody just talks about that, and they didn't confiscate. They did a surrender by executive order, but they did that to gold in 1933, you know, and in 1934 they did the same thing with silver. So, what will happen? Could that happen? Could they do that again? They're passing a million executive orders, so I wouldn't, be surprised. So maybe you went and made fishing lures out of it, and you lost it in a big fishing accident at the bottom of the lake. I don't know what happened to it. You know, um, I know mine got taken, so I don't really have enough to bark about anymore. So I don't know. Can't even buy the the building I want for the ministry at this point, because would have to go up. So I need to be patient and hodl anyways. So it wasn't, to me, it's okay. Um, I know it has more value, and I'm more paying attention to the ratio. So I think for the little teeny tiny amount that I have, I probably need to get rid of it at about 15 to 1, 10 to 1. And then I know one day that I do feel that, because silver is so extremely used in so many different things, not just these new data mining and Bitcoin stations or whatever, um, that, it's used throughout the military industrial complex, the war machine. Mr. Stinky Muskrat's not going to take Starlink and satellites, and his boring machines all take, all these phones and tech, and there's just going to be more and more silver used up. So I think this shows that the market is broken. The silver market has broken, and price is going to be irrelevant, because you're going to know, hopefully, or listen to this channel and not taking this economic advice, but sound information that you needed to figure out what you're going to trade it for, other than back for dollars. Only thing you've lost right now, in my opinion, is that the ability to go sell it right away has been taken away from you. But if the price keeps going up, it's going to be a hard time to sit there and hold on to it when the price keeps going up and you can't sell it. It's going to be, these people are masterminds of what they do. They can drop it down real quick, and people bail out of it real quick and then raise it right back, like they did. Surrender it at $20 an ounce, and then repriced it at what, $35, almost 30, almost twice as much, So again, this message is for, people who've been holding on for a while. I really hope you would have taken some profit if there was something you needed to do, and hold on. Don't ever get rid of your whole stack. And you know yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. There are little pockets right now, Donald. There are pockets where you can still, absolutely, but I'm always giving you a way ahead of time. Remember, everything I give you in this channel is way ahead of time. But get ready, they're going to put the brakes on it. Okay, so for those who can still go sell their metal, it's not everywhere yet. There are lots of coin shops, brothers, sisters. Okay, and it's a teeny tiny market. It really is. It's a $900 billion market cap. These people are brilliant. A lot of these people are going to go flood into the coin shops and pawn shops. They know what they're doing. They're masterminds at this. Okay, this is a brilliant move on them part. I think it's just absolutely, it's a brilliant way to corner this market, to get a little better idea, because there'll be a big influx. They can get a good count on what they have right now. Uh, so hopefully you'll listen and have pulled some profit right now. Um, and and because it's going to get a thin market. You cannot have these coin shops who take in, sometimes 10,000 and 5 and 6 and 8 and 10 and 15 and 25 people come in there and keep the cash on hand to do this, brothers, sisters. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't. They don't have that type of, they don't operate in those margins. They don't make as much as you think. They got lights to keep on, and sometimes in numismatic they make a good chunk, but they still are given a fair chunk too. So Doesn't surprise me. Like I said, it's an interesting time. I already told you that you needed to try to figure out what you're going to do and trade it other than for dollars. So I think silver will get a mania. I think there'll be a silver mania. Maybe this will cause a little bit of a mania, and it's not good because it's going to keep going up. It's going to be hard for these shops, but maybe that'll be the time that people really truly will want to trade it, because there will be some people who will be able to afford it again. And I think it's just going to be a time where you need to hold on to what you have and don't freak out that you can't get rid of it right now for cash. Again, the whole idea was to never sell it back to cash, you know. Uh, did you get into Yeah, and there was a time to get in and a time to get out, and that's why I was trying to tell everybody here on the ministry. I think this is a time to pull profit. Pull your profit out right now. Pull whatever profit you can. Get your original investment out, if nothing else, and then anything else you have left is your pure profit, right? So you wouldn't lose your original investment, and that's not wrong to do. And I'm not giving any advice, but you know, hopefully, like I said, I know there's been people who have bought in at 12, 13, 14, 15, 20, 30, 40 pre-50 sale, where I was telling you it's fire sale prices, which was not that long ago. Remember, we just started the year at $70 and we're already almost hit 120. That's almost a $50 gain in less than 1 month. Of course, this is killing the markets, brothers and sisters. This is not what we wanted to see. I told you we wanted to see a nice stair step, a nice, and this is just way too hard, too fast, but it will find its natural free market value, if you will. And we do have that market available to us. If we find somebody that wants to trade something 10 ounces for a pickup truck or something like that, or whatever it is now, that's a free market. And I don't do the whole freedom nonsense, remember, but that is a free market. And that's the way that's the way it should work. Free trade. We two people shake hands, we agree, he takes this, I take that, she takes, you know, it's you know, it's a fair trade. And that's what may come back with precious metals. And I told you that that's what you need to be prepared, that if the price of silver goes away, what are you going to do then? So you're here right now. I don't think this is the big one though, where they literally lose the coal commodity exchange, which you got to remember that people have been wanting their actual physical metal instead of wanting the paper payment. And so and those are big contracts. Those are not just small amounts of silver. So um, this is the big money taking their silver out. So it's I don't think there's a backup right now. I think I think that this is just part of what they're doing to try to, you know, get control of the system and get control of the pricing, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Silver's just going to keep going up, and it's going to make it more and more push this economy more and more into a volatile situation. That's what we see. We see, and gold is an indicator of what is called chaos. The higher the price of gold, the higher the chaos, and gold is at an all-time high. So we're here. We made it. This is the time. I mean, if you ever needed to point to a time in history where you saw what's an indicator, gold has always been an indicator of the level of chaos in society. So people are rushing to this safe haven asset, as well as people are pulling out of some of these things because they've held on to it now and they're doing what they need to do. Wise virgins with extra oil. So hopefully, again, those that were in this market took their profits when they should, and those that are willing to hold to something that's never gone to zero should not be anxious at all and know that you'll be fine. You just have to wait for this hiccup. It might come back much stronger, you know, and even if it pulled back, I don't think that would ever change my idea of investing in something that I've watched now just go up by. Last year was up 164%. It was the number one performing asset of 2025. You telling me that there's now too much of it? No, there's not. There's been a shortage of the metal for the last 6 years, a deficit, 200 to 300 million ounces that are not produced that are in demand. So this is a small little hiccup. And again, I think it's a brilliant, I'm just getting it to you a little bit early. If you haven't seen, some places are not, you know, able to operate. They don't have the capital to operate in these extreme high prices. And I wouldn't blame them. They're their margin of going up and down is a huge swing. $10 up in a day and $10 down. It didn't move $10 for 10 years. It didn't. So these markets it's hard for these coin shops um, to operate in these parameters with the capital that they have. So maybe some of them they'll sell, because I think there'll be a continued demand for these things, and they'll pause and they'll shut their doors, and it won't be a permanent thing. They'll figure out how to pay their rent that month or whatever, which hopefully won't eat up too much. Keep paying their light bills, and they'll come back up with a bigger capital. Maybe they'll only be paying, when silver's $300, they'll only be paying 150, but they'll come back online, and the markets, and they'll let it catch up, and that's why they'll get a bunch of weak hands out of the market, and it'll raise right back up. It'll go to 300 then, and maybe they'll have a little bit more margin, and they'll get a little bit more refined on how to do this next time, because if it just goes straight up, man, the same thing will happen again. uh, so it is what it is. I told you, I think it's cheap under $100, and that's why I told you, anybody that is a good margin for me. I knew something was coming at 100. That's kind of when this started, this overpricing, and that's not where that's about as much as they can pay. That's their tip top that I've seen most people pay, no matter if this price has gone up over 100. If it's been, more to buy it, this is $131 right now to buy a buffalo. They can only pay so much for it because their margins, they, like I said. So good for those people who got in before then and pulled profits at that. And I think some of them might kick themselves in the butt as it comes back on, but it could take a little while now. This could take 6 months, a year to peel itself back. And I think we're coming into a big downturn in the markets right now with the stocks, what, at 7,000 S&P or something like that, the NASDAQ, and the Dow is just unbelievable. It's so overbought and so overpriced before, just like at the roaring 20s, leading up to the 1929 crash. We're here again. So it's a cycle. I think gold and silver, not giving any economic advice, will perform well though through these times. And although when recessions happen and depressions, almost everything goes down, but there's been times before, or in past, that we've seen that happen, and gold and silver outshined and continued to rise. So I'm not giving advice on any of this. Again, I just pay attention to the cycles. I love the cycles of things. It's just Father made me love patterns and algorithms and cycles, and it's the way he made my brain. So interesting times. Again, hopefully those that were subscribing to this channel saw what I was saying about time to kind of pull profit. I've seen a little bit of the way that things, yeah, we're here. These things are this is part of the cycle, the Yuga cycle, the Kali Yuga cycle. This is a debt cycle. They ride the extinction cycles. We're in the great 12,000 year cycle. So here we are. You should have seen it, and this will continue. That's why Mr. Warp Speed called it the golden age, because it's the age of clay, but there'll be a FOMO, there'll be a blow off top. They're not done with the system. They're going to continue to juice this system with tokenization now, and what was that, tether back there, tether to what, one 10,000th or something like that of gold, or something, 1,000th or something like that. So here we are into the new system, whether you like it or not. It's here. We are going into this age of tech where AI is the future. It just makes sense for most people in such a dog eat dog world that they're gonna replace most of the common, like Mr. Warp Speed. Again, they're gonna build this, whatever, was it a John Deere factory or one of these factories? I can't remember. It was one of these big, industrial suppliers, but I don't think there'll be very many jobs held by human beings in those factories and those plants. That's just the age we're in now. It is what it is. And so that's why I think things such as precious metals, gold, silver, copper, rhodium, palladium, nickel, all these things will be huge assets into the future for their future tech, and it's just part of this cycle that we're in. And I don't think it'll last forever. I do think the sun will peel this all back eventually, but they're also ready for that. They have their, Operation Blue Book, and they've been ready for this for some time, and they're going to, they have their power after the system goes down, and they'll continue to have their web because they have to have it to have everybody tokenized and tracked and traced. But it'll be very movie-esque. I don't watch a bunch of them, but I know they make a ton of these movies. But that's just the society that, people have allowed this to happen, you know, um, and, that's just the society where we're going into. This is the modern day beast, and the beast is spiritual. It's not even a physical, but that's where they're uploading remember, they're going to upload their conscience like Jiminy Cricket to the web, so they can get through this age where, we don't get flesh after this, judgment, this final judgment, until the little season comes, and we're not there yet. So, we haven't seen the final trump. It hasn't been the wedding feast of the lambs. We're not at that. Although we've reached that last, book in the scriptures, Revelation, that's a whole time slice of a whole, remember the Yuga cycle of like 2,000 years of the age of air. So we're not anywhere where I feel like we're near the end. But do I think it's something that could be seen in my lifetime? Absolutely. It could happen at any moment. We're supposed to live like that, have your lamps trimmed, be burning bright, and have extra oil. And he said, have your loins girded in my service. So he makes me do what I do in here. And I know that, I'm not supposed to put my head in the sand, and I'm not going to let anybody tell me history. It's not written in a book. The victor gets the spoils. So you have to pay attention, especially in this modern day age. This is the worst time to put your head down. Sometime to put your head down so you can live to, fight another day. But I'm not talking about in a military standpoint. I'm talking about he saves the best for last, the wedding feast of the Lamb. So you got to finish the strongest in a marathon. And when we come into this age of sorrows where we're at in the scriptures, you'll know that although it may pull back, that just means it's going to come on stronger like a woman. It says he'll come like a thief, in labor in the night. It comes suddenly, like in the days of Noah. It talks about that. So here we are. It'll be the same thing. People be giving into marriage, going to buy a Tesla, taking out the dog to the dog park, just going on and building and doing the same thing as they were at the time of Noah. And it's going to come quickly. He says in Revelation 3:11, I come quickly, let no one take your crown. So in this age of error, to receive your inheritance, heirs, the heirs to the crown, to the throne of remember David, from the house of David, born of Bethlehem, the king, Leo in the celestial firmament, Judah, the lion, that is Leo in the celestial firmament. I'm a celestial magi, and he gave me celestial eyes. And so I'm, given an abundance of bis when it comes to celestial bis, to be a witness to things spoken in Revelation, that I know we're here. I know we're in the last book, because he spoke of these things, and I am Revelation, to be a witness, to be a walking testament, a walking apocalypse, to literally pull off, the lies and show people to the narrow way. The age of deception is over. Pisces, Vesica Pisces, remember, we've seen that birth from morning star and the king star, and then we've seen Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn is the time marker. When it birthed with the king, we came into this turning Yuga, 12,000 year cycle. 6,000 years ago past. Remember, we are now 6,000 plus years in the future. This whole place was flooded with water. Remember Noah, this event that I was telling you about? Well, we're 6,000+ years into the future, into the 12,000 year super cycle. So these are cycles. These are part of the Yuga cycle. These are part of things like myself, that you're not twisted and perverted. You can read these celestial markers. You know what time we're in. We're not in deception anymore. That's the age of apocalypse. The age of deception was when Christ was birthed from fire to water, and the age of water is over. That age is gone. Now we're in this thousands. Remember, thousands. There's no such thing as thousand. Like there's no zero. There isn't. But people think there is, because they live in this modern day world. If you actually knew the old math, you would know there is no zero. It's a placeholder, and there is no thousand. So stop it. This is thousands. But focus, because again, these are very interesting times that were spoken about thousands of years ago. And now we have witness to these scriptures in Revelation coming to pass in the celestial firmament, I think I would look up, be wise, as a serpent. He said, your redemption draweth nigh. So careful, they're gods in the sky, and they love all this, this phileo things of the world, and it's not for me. I'm ready to be with Father, and that's Hogadesh. So I don't need not worry about my day of death's already written. Not going to worry about anybody doing anything nefarious. I don't step in front of moving trains, but I don't, I wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, the rulers of the darkness of this world. Spiritual wickedness in high places is my battle. So different battle than most. So thank you for Paul's writings. Be strong in the Lord. He tells us that, can't serve two masters. So we need to let him be our commander and let him steer the ship. So anyways, but thank you, Father. I know that's my treasure is the gospel, and nothing in shiny dirt is gonna. I already have enough burden because of shiny dirt in my life. It's caused some pretty massive chaos. So Father did it. I'm not mad at anybody. It just, there's more to things in life than shiny dirt, but you have to be able to have extra oil. And one of those things, again, is the yellow metal and the white metal, gold and silver. So I wanted to come in here and have a little conversation for those who have been in the market for a little while, or those who just got in the market. It's going to be a kind of a time where it's going to, again, hopefully you found a place in the future where you knew, hey, I want to try to get this out of it. I'm not where I need to be in mine. So I don't have much. I got to hold on to it for longer, but I know that I think price is going to continue to raise. No matter if you can settle it with somebody into cash right now, that doesn't mean the price is not going to go up. And look what it costs you to buy, ounce of silver at APMEX or SD or JM. Look at the price of copper came up again. So it did. Copper came up again. So the place that I told you to purchase from, it came up. The prices went up to $7.37 if you buy 500, or $8.31 a coin. That was kind of a bounty if you can get in. They gave me a free coin too. Not free because I had to buy one, but a barber as a thank you. So, but yeah, I don't see again that this whole there's not enough silver in it, or there's too much silver, and they're backing up the refineries as a long term. The industry's going to need it. I think that's what's happening. The industry's eating that up right now, allowing that backup to come in, and that's already in the markets. And then it's going to be like, oh, we're going to shut off the food stamps or the EBT cards to people. No, they're not. So in this case, there are some buyers that aren't buying right now that have been buying through, local coin shops is what I'm talking about. Most people aren't in the silver market. They don't have anywhere and any idea how to get rid of it once they actually get it in their possession, unless somebody steals it from them or something, because they tell them where it's at. But don't do that. There's no third-party risk. But again, I think this will be short-lived because industry burns up more metal. 80+% is used by the industrial sector, and we're only going to continue to have more and more use for silver. It's used in everything that you can imagine. So it's not something that so yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a mania. It's gonna happen. Price of silver. People are still buying. People are still buying right now. It's the safe haven asset. It always has been. When there's chaos, people flock to gold and silver. That's why the higher the price of gold, the higher the price, the higher the chaos. It's an indicator of chaos, and that's why we see gold pushing over $5,500. It costs more to buy it. It's going to be more than that to buy it from an online dealer. So, and there's a backup on the online dealers to sell it to you, but there's a backup of the refiners to buy it. This is because the price of metal went up way too fast, way too quick. It's what it is. I'll be the bearer of bad tidings because you don't want to hear it, but that's what happened. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and it's making it coin shops who are having a hard time selling it at these older prices because the refiners don't like this price fluctuation. They're industrial. They don't have this price action. It's the price action is in the coin shops and the jewelry industry. It's not in the industry. They have a more of a set price, and they're starting to see the volatility. So that's what we're seeing. I know it. I'm not a fool. I've been in this, watching this, doing this for decades, more than a decade here on YouTube, telling you, the kind of the ins and outs of how this, this money, God's money works. It's a teeny tiny market. It's a $900 billion market cap. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's not going away. They're not going to just stop the demand for precious metals. They need it for war. 4 plus 5 is 9, 4 plus 7 is 11. This current administration, the POTUS 9/11, his first go around, like I said, he started doing his sanctions and tariffs and, there's been a lot of things that have been cut off. Look at China, just cut off 40%. They do 40% of the world's refining, and they're not exporting any silver. There's going to be a huge demand. The Chinese markets in Shanghai have silver priced at over 130, and they're paying, 12 to, $15 premium. Some of these coin shops are paying $12 to $15 back. So this is an interesting time, brothers and sisters. This isn't the time to freak out. If you bought in recently, then you should have known it's not some lottery ticket. This is not some, stock where you get rich quick, it goes up real fast, or Bitcoin or something like that. This is a metal that people have held for thousands of years, and it doesn't go to zero. It will keep up with the price of inflation. That's what it does. The price of silver hasn't gone up. Everything else has gone up. It just reserves your purchasing power. So again, been doing this for a long time, not giving any economic advice. This is a tough time for people who maybe recently got into the market and are ready to pull some profit. You probably waited a little long, but if you wait a little bit longer, if you see right now, it's a little harder to move the metal to exit your exit strategy. But if you'll wait like an investment and not buy it as a lottery ticket, you'll probably be able to double. It's not going to stop going down. The price of metal went up again today. It's moving within that range. It's not going down. Even if the markets are not, they're saying it's not in demand, then why is it that these online bullion dealers have backups and are doing pre-sales? So something is definitely shaking in the market. And again, the whole idea is, I've always told everybody through Silver's Like Gold, Truth Viral Television, America Ever After, here, all these channels I've done on YouTube, it's never to trade this back for dollars. That's all people have lost right now, is their ability to exit back into cash for a minute. So what? That'll come back online, and it'll probably be a lot more than you think, and it's going to take some time. Like I said, these people who sell these metals for a living don't have the operating costs, $250,000 worth of metals in a day. And there's that many people actually selling their metals. Good for them. I don't think it's, hopefully they didn't sell their whole stack and they made some pulled profit, and they're having the remodel they want done. They're buying the Maserati. They're doing whatever. That's their business, what they do with it. But they took profit, but I don't think that the market that we're in right now, that there's such a high demand that the APMEX, the largest bullion dealer online, comes out and makes an announcement that there's been record, purchasing. And then some of these, actually, some of them are actually putting now caps on how much you can sell. So there's something shaking in this market, and that's what I'm telling you. This market's broken, and it's trying to figure out what are you going to do. What's your exit strategy? I always told you never want to trade back to paper. God forbid. I've had to do it once in my life, where a substantial amount. That's where most of mine went, and it is what it is. It was liquid. I couldn't sell the land right away. I couldn't sell vehicles right away. This was something that I could go take and get, so I don't want you having this information here. I don't want you having this information here. Get connections, interruptions. I don't have, I just have a phone, so it's working off of towers, but All right, maybe we should wrap this up for a little bit. Spend some time out here, pray with Father a little bit, and come back on for the end of the day and see what the price of metal is for the end of the day. So, hodl, hold on for dear life. Don't go don't go running off and because you just recently got in the market. You bought something that has been never gone to zero in the last 6,000 to 7,000 years. So lots to gain, but you might have to be patient. This isn't some lottery ticket. You don't buy it and get rich quick. It has gone up pretty quick. So that's the problem that we're seeing. Hopefully this video here, this live stream covered that. For some of you those that got in the market might be a little concerned about what you see, and if you can't just exit right back into cash. Again, the idea was to exit into something that wasn't, yeah, it went in and out there. Pray. I apologize. You just got to work through my it's HD, not for high definition. It's HD for high desert. So my apologies. But again, I'm hoping that again you'll see what I'm saying. What I'm putting out here is that this is not a permanent thing. Nothing happens overnight. My dad taught me that, and hopefully again, those who had a hearing ear, I'm not giving any economic advice. This is just information that I've been in the market and dabbled a little bit, and made some money here and there on it. And so it's there is a way to do it, but you got to be able to do it properly. And some people are never going to try to ever sell any of their precious metals and give it to their kids, and that's a good guarantee that later on it will have value. So it won't lose it. Don't freak out. Like I said, in the markets right now with what you see, there's a lot of price action. It's really hard for these bullion dealers, apologize, to keep them afloat when they have that much silver coming in and that kind of so. All right, looks like I'm looping out, guys. I want to go Pastor Revelation. Links are in the description. If you want to support the ministry, there is Cash App and PayPal if you want to hit this ministry up with the digital payment, but it's not required to be a part of the ministry. Just bring yourself back, when you have some more time, because you spent some here and you're not going to get it back. So careful where you spend your time. It's more valuable than any gold or silver or precious metals. So be girded in service, have your lamps trimmed, he said, and have extra oil. Okay. All right. Pastor Revelation, Pastor Apocalypse. Whoa.